Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Wade T. Lightheart from Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today we have a living legend, strongman, family man, philosopher, an all-around great guy, a leader of men, a king of kings, my friend, Elliott Hulse. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Wade.
Elliott, it's been a while since we last hung out. I think the last time we were running around in Sedona, Arizona, shooting a bunch of film stuff. And then, of course, we connect up in Florida. And, of course, life's got all kinds of crazy. You're doing so many things. You're one of the original YouTube sensations. And I think kind of before YouTube became a sensation, like you were one of those early pioneers that went out and do it. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about the backstory of Elliott Hulse? Like, who is Elliott Hulse? And that's a great question. And then how did you become this kind of influencer and kind of a real leader particularly for young men?
Well, I'm a strength coach and I teach men how to grow stronger. And as a result, I wanted to own a gym. I started my gym out the back of my van, training people, guys and athletes in the city parks, using mostly trash. We'd drag sleds, tires that I found, tire sleds, old used tires I found in the around the city, sandbags, and I'm also a pretty good marketer, or I had to learn how to be a marketer if I wanted to survive back then. And so I started making videos of the workouts that we were doing in the park. This was back in like 2006, 2007, right? And YouTube had just come out. And so a part of my marketing strategy was to make videos. And by the way, you know, that was like a big camera back then. And we didn't have cameras on our phones. Man, times have changed.
Yeah.
One of my strategies was to make videos of the workouts while the guys were doing them in the park, because the things that we were doing were pretty unique, and then upload them to YouTube so that they could share it with their friends and family. And mainly what I was looking for were referrals, right? So, hey, check out this cool workout that I did at the park with this guy named Elliott. And so my objective was to have them pass it around and then bring in their friends. And it worked fairly well, but little did I know that millions of people worldwide would have access, right? You know, I wasn't thinking that way. You know, how people now, like, they start a YouTube channel and the first thing they're thinking is like, how can I get 1 million people to see what I'm doing? I want to be a celebrity. That was not in my mind at all. It was literally about putting food on the table by getting more men to join my strength camp. And as it happened, young men throughout on the planet, throughout Earth, started commenting and sending me questions about fitness and lifting and bodybuilding and getting stronger and sports performance. So I started answering the questions. You know, I realized that I could probably just do some good by answering these questions for the guys in my comments. And of course, as a coach, you recognize that one of the things that happens is the relationship with your clients usually evolves from, hey, I'm teaching you how to lift, to what do I do about this issue in my life? What do I do about, you know, school and girlfriends and parents and all these various things? So as the young men in my gym I asked those questions. I loved answering them. The young men on Earth who found my videos asked those questions, and I enjoyed answering them, and apparently they enjoyed my answers. So my videos became viral back in like 2012, 13, 14.
Well, there's a lot more to that story too, because you're very humble about your accomplishments. But I think for a lot of people who might not have known, you were quite an athlete to start, and you had developed an incredible physique and some, you know, you had a position of authority just by how you looked, what you were able to do. Do you want to talk a little bit about the backstory, that kind of, you know, how you became to the point where you decided you were going to start coaching people?
So I grew up on Long Island, both my parents, and which is a blessing in itself. And my uncle, my mother's brother, was coming up on some hard times. He must have been about like 24, 25 years old when I was like, 3, 4 years old. And he came to live with us. And he was a athletic badass. He was a black belt in Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. He was a marathon runner. He was gymnast. He won all kinds of awards in gymnastics. I mean, just super athlete. He grew up in Belize. Both of my parents grew up in Belize. So, I mean, when he came to America, he was used to swinging from vines, climbing trees, and, jumping off hills and like that. So when he went to school, he was like so much stronger and more athletic than a lot of the kids that, he grew up with. So when he came to live with us, he would take me and my brother down to the basement gym, which was, pretty old school at the time. I remember he had the chest expanders.
Oh yeah, the cables, those things that you could when you had all four, I don't know how you could open that up. It was so strong. I remember those
springs, and then you could pinch yourself with those springs. Those things were dangerous.
Oh yeah.
But he would work out with that, and he'd show us some workouts. He'd have us do push-ups and sit-ups. And I would also watch him chop bricks with his hands and do backflips and beat up a heavy bag. So, I was a little kid, and we were down there, and he would do those kinds of things with us. And I'm grateful and I'm blessed to have really good genetics, that come from him and his side for athleticism, but then also to have him there teaching me how to do these workouts when I'm like 4 or 5 years old, really built up my self-esteem as an athlete. In school, I was the fastest, I was the strongest. So, I felt good about myself in terms of athleticism. And when I got into high school, I wanted to play football. And it would just so happen that my uncle, around that time, I was about 14 years old, he had come and gone and had changed careers. And he decided, this is back in 1993, that he was going to become a fitness trainer, a personal trainer. This was a brand new career. It did not really exist. He was kind of like a pioneer in that. And he came over to the house once a week, and he would teach me and my brother how to lift barbells. My dad bought us a barbell set and teach us how to lift barbells so that I can get bigger and stronger and play football, which turned out really well. I did really well in football to earn a college scholarship. And I knew, especially, seeing my uncle as an example when I was 14 years old, that's what I wanted to do. I want to be like my uncle. When I was a kid, I wanted to be like him. And when I was a teenager, I wanted to be like him. And I wanted to train people. I thought it was the coolest thing. My uncle earns money by teaching people how to get stronger. I mean, what could be better? There's nothing cooler than this. So when I went to college, even in high school, I would bring all my buddies over, all the kids on my football team, and I would teach them how to lift. And I had it in my mind that I knew back then this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I was going to teach men how to lift barbells and grow stronger. And so that's kind of like the foundation from which I built my football career. I was a professional strongman for a little while. When I started making YouTube videos, I discovered that if I took my shirt off, that the aesthetics attracted a lot of people. So it was totally a marketing ploy. I didn't go into it with the mindset of being a bodybuilder or a celebrity. It was how can I get more clicks so I can put more food on my table?
That's an incredible backstory to have that influence. And I think it's so powerful today where there's so many single parent families, no fathers in houses and things like this. And you had such a rich influence, with both parents, and also to have, your uncle coming in as an outsider to the regular dynamics to give you this kind of guidance and to bring you along the way. When you started that career, now, I think a lot of people under today's world think that they're going to just start a YouTube stage. They're going to do 3 weeks of working out. They're going to read an online course, and then they're going to be a coach. And here you have a whole almost a 20-year history. You went to university, and before you even got started in being a professional authority. But what was it like in those first little while? Because everybody kind of sees you as today as this kind of YouTube celebrity and this guy that's kind of quote unquote made the big time. What was that early stages like? Was there some struggles? Was it challenging? How was that?
Well, at the age of 14, I fell in love with two things. I found the barbell. My uncle taught me how to lift, and I had a girlfriend at the time, and I fell in love with her. And so at the age of 23, we got married. We've been together. Today is our 18-year anniversary, but we've been together like 26 years. We got married, and about 2 years later, we had our first child, and we were living in her father's basement. And, I had a decent paying job as a personal trainer, but not enough to like pay rent. So we had to live in her dad's basement, my father-in-law's basement. When Colleen became pregnant with Isabel, my parents moved down to Florida, and I decided that, maybe this is my chance to start something for myself in my life. And so I moved down to Florida, and I took a job at a personal training gym. It was called Lifestyle Family Fitness. They were bought out by LA Fitness now. And within 6 months, I was the top trainer there. But it was for a specific reason. Of course, I was good at what I was doing. I was a very good trainer, but I studied sales. Like, I realized that, okay, the guys that are winning in the fitness gym are the guys that know how to market and sell, right? So I was in their gym, but I used that as an opportunity to sharpen my sales skills because I wanted clients, because I wanted to get out of what now was my parents' house in Florida. I wanted to, raise my family. I had a daughter in our own home. So I had to hustle. I worked 7 days a week from the time the gym opened to the time the gym closed. And I remember one of the managers said, "Elliott, you're going to burn yourself out." I was like, it does not matter. I just was hustling. So I got to the point where I saved up a little bit, just enough that allowed me to at least think that I could go out on my own. And I didn't know how difficult that would be, but I was armed with marketing knowledge, and the internet had just came out. Like, the internet was brand new. And so I figured out how to create a website. And how to get that website to rank for personal trainer St. Petersburg, because that's where I lived. And so as a result, I was able to get leads, and I was able to get some clients, and I was able to survive a little bit on my own. I was $90,000 in debt, brand new family, growing a new family. It was tough, man. I mean, there were times where I foreclosed on a house. I took a little bit of the money that I was saving, and we were way over our heads, but I bought a townhouse because I wanted to have a home for my family. And we had to foreclose on that. Luckily, I didn't have to go bankrupt. I paid off the $90,000 in debt. We had student loans between she and I, plus just tons and tons we were living on credit cards. We were at a point where I had to get food stamps, right? Like, I had to get government assistance. And so it was very challenging, but I had it in my mind that I was going to make it work. And just with time and effort and persistence, I was able to go from training guys out of the back of my van to a little warehouse gym in South St. Petersburg, where we had crackheads and prostitutes that would come up to the door all the time. And slowly, I mean, it really was an evolution over the course of 10, 15 years, where that I went to another gym which was a little bit bigger. Now we're in a 5,000 square foot gym, and of course I got million subscribers on YouTube. But it was a decade of struggle to get to this point now.
It's fascinating, and I think it's so important for people to understand, to kind of honor the struggle. I mean, I think a lot of people have this illusion in kind of this instant, I call it the Instacart world. You just press a button and something shows up at your house. I think a lot of people think you just press a button and success shows up. And even though you were an accomplished athlete, even though you were a good coach, even though that you knew sales and all those things, you still had to struggle. At what point did things start to change for you when, you know, when do you think that there was a moment where you went, something's changed? Like,
Mm-hmm.
when
There were a bunch
did
of
that
things. There were a bunch of things that converged. So this may have been, I have 4 children. This may have been about the time my third daughter was born. Things were still, I mean, that was when we were on food stamps. My third daughter was born. Things were still very difficult, but because I had studied internet marketing to get people to come to my gym, right? I had come across this idea of information marketing. I had never heard of this before. I mean, I didn't know anything about it, but because I was trying to figure out how to get my websites to rank and I learned how to get leads and use squeeze pages. And then I learned sales processes. You know, I was in that whole mindset. I come across, I think the first place I came across this was Mike Littman. I don't even know if anybody knows who he is any longer, but he had this internet marketing CD that my uncle lent me. And in the CD, he was talking about various different ways to use internet marketing. I was just trying to get more clients for my gym, but he said that you can sell a digital book. And you don't need any publishing. You don't need a publisher. You don't need, and there's no overhead. And that instantly like went on, that's what I'll do. I can sit down and I can write digital books. I can make workouts, and you know, I had enough information, I had enough experience as a trainer to give good, solid advice via, you know, this a PDF, a file, right, that I could sell to people. So about the time that I was learning about creating an ebook, writing sales copy. So now I went from, you know, belly to belly sales. You know, I had sales processes, and you know, when you're talking to somebody, there's a scripts and there's ways to go about closing them so that they can become a client. I discovered that, okay, now you take that and you put it into words and you put it on a website, and it's called sales copy. You write a sales letter that basically sells person, you know, breaks all their, you know, they would say that, what is it? Objections, you know, breaks all their objections and give, you know, just the process. You follow the process. And so I wrote this thing and I had this PDF and I put it online and I went to go sell it. And of course there was nobody who wanted to buy it because I didn't realize, you know, that I didn't know how to get that page in front of people. But when I started making the YouTube videos, so this, like, that was like on the back burner. It was there. I was like, all right, I know how to make this digital thing. I just need people to buy it. And then I started making the YouTube videos, and there were people there, and they were, my subscribers were going up little by little, little by little. And so I decided, okay, I will just try to sell my digital book to the people that are watching my YouTube videos. So at the end of my videos, I would make an offer. I'd make an offer and say, hey, click the link down below, learn more about my workouts, click the link down below, subscribe to my emails, click the link down below. Every video I would make was mainly to get people to click the link so that they can buy this digital thing that I made. And so that started to take off a little bit around 2012, 2013. And then about early 2013, these 2 twins called the Hodge twins on
Love
YouTube.
those guys. Those guys are hilarious. I watch their videos a lot. They're great.
Mm-hmm. They were up and coming. They were up and coming guys, and I guess they watched a couple of my videos, and Keith, well, not the older one, but the one that's like more alpha in the videos, he decided to reach out to me and said, hey man, I like what you're doing. You should become a YouTube partner. And I was like, what's that? Why would I want to do that? I sell these ebooks and I'm doing okay. He said, listen, man, if you just become a YouTube partner, which basically means now your video has commercials on it, like ads. People can buy ads on your videos. Turn on your ads and then email me back in a month and tell me what you think. So I was like, all right, what am I going to do? Earn like a couple pennies per video. I was like, all right, well, it can't hurt. I just turned it on. And so the first month of doing that, I think I made like $18,000. Holy shit, I've been leaving almost 20 grand a month on the table. And so I got really motivated at that point, and I started cranking out. A friend of ours, Matt Gallant, said to me, he said, Elliott, because at the time I was making a little bit of money. I was making like 2 or 3 videos a week. He said, make 2 or 3 videos a day. I was like, whoa, okay. So I started making 2 or 3 videos a day. And so that, tripled the amount that I was making from YouTube. Plus, I had links in my bio that people were buying my ebooks, and that's like when it all took off.
Amazing, amazing story. So we got that side because I think it's a fascinating history. I mean, because there's so many people today that are trying to make it in the YouTube, but they're not maybe necessarily willing either to establish the authority, learn some sales and marketing, and grind it out. And you put all of those things together on top of your credentials and ability. Let's talk about the athletic side, the strength side. What is the essential components from your perspective in order to become, quote unquote, a stronger version of yourself?
Well, if we use my my holistic point of view that became popular in my YouTube videos, I would talk about becoming the strongest version of yourself through the 4 layers of strength. I would say that there are 4 layers of strength, and you got to acknowledge all 4 layers if you want to be fully strong, the strongest version of yourself. And so the first and the most superficial layer was neural. What can you do with this computer and the hardware that you've got, the software and the hardware that you've got? Training the muscular system and training the muscles is concomitant with training the nervous system. So motor recruitment patterns and primal patterns, and then building a solid foundation of flexibility, stability, strength, and power. That was really what it's all about, so that you can be a bodybuilder, a power lifter, strongman, athlete, whatever it is that you want. Start from that foundation: stability, flexibility, stability, strength, power. And so that's neuromuscular strength. Then there is boy, it's been a while. I don't make so many videos anymore. I'm on to other things. But then, so there's neuromuscular strength, and then there's, I think, physiological strength, right? Because that would only make sense. I'm getting too much in my head, right? Is your health, like what you're about, Wade. Like you can't throw out your diet and the physiological components, like your sleep. Today they call it biohacking, like all the biohacking stuff, eating the right foods at the right time, getting to bed, drinking the right kind of water. These guys now are like tracking their circadian rhythms. You put me onto a whole lot of stuff, taking the right supplements. And I learned a lot from you in terms of physiological strength, because that really wasn't my expertise. It was the lifting. Mm-hmm. So, there's the physiological strength, keeping your stress low, getting sunshine, like all these things that just add to a healthy life. And then the third layer of strength was what I would call energetic strength, but it's really the mind, having the right mindset. And then finally, the top layer is life mastery strength. And really today I spend most of my time speaking and teaching towards life mastery strength. I started out with the strength, with the neuromuscular strength. I got very popular for that. Physiological stuff is kind of associated with it. So I talk a lot about, eating right, fasting, all these cool things. But then today, most of what I talk about and the niche that I'm in is mostly life mastery and, mental strength. For men in particular, we've got a crisis on our hands, a man crisis, and it starts in the family. It starts from the top. We have a lack of fathers. We've got a lack of strong fathers. We have a lack of families. And so I really feel like, my calling today and where I spend most of my time coaching and teaching and inspiring is in terms of how to I'm still making men strong, but how to make men strong men, alpha males, good leaders, good husbands, good fathers, good businessmen, just righteous men. So that's the whole gamut. That's the whole picture.
This is a great topic, and I want to really dive into this because I'm in agreement with you. I was fortunate enough that I had both parents in my life, and I had a strong alpha dad. And there's a lot of talk out there with toxic masculinity, and there's this kind of concept that alpha males are kind of these guys that walk around in club beta males and grab women and carry them back to their caves. And that's not really what an alpha male is. Can you break down what a strong man in a strong expression of manliness and leadership and the things that you teach? Can you share with our listeners what that is? Because I know there's some people out there thinking, they don't even know what that is. They don't have an example of it. They might feel something that they should, but society is like telling them that that's bad or that's not, or just explain what that is to our listeners.
Well, one of the things that we got to recognize, and that has been totally lost, is that our ancestors understood that boys cannot become men without other men, right? It's not a biological thing in and of its alone. It's not a biological thing by itself. There is an initiation. There's a rites of passage. There's meaning, and there's purpose, and there are stories, and there's religion. That's all been given to us as a means to teach a wild, fiery testosterone bleeding through his eye little boy, who now all he wants to fight into taking that ball of energy and turning it into something dignified and powerful and strong and with integrity, right? Now, the type of young man that is lacking today because we've got so much estrogen in our food and our water. I mean, we're being chemically castrated from the time we're in the womb. I think I read something about the amount of plastics that are found in a woman's womb when the baby's in there that basically makes boys are coming out like girls. A part of me thinks that this is orchestrated, that it's been created this way, that if you want to destroy a culture, you want to destroy a country, you destroy the men, because the men are the strong ones. And so, but anyway, our ancestors, prior to all the pollution that's literally turning us into women, our ancestors understood that for a boy to become a man, there were a couple of things that were needed. The first thing is this pattern that according to anthropologists, Mercer Eliott, and Robert Moore in his incredible book, The Archetype of Initiation, talks about how there always is a literal and a figurative movement away from the world of the mother and what that all represents: softness, sensuality, beta male stuff, which is okay, because when you're a baby, you got to be a beta male. You're soft, you're dependent, you're needy, all these kinds of things. Most men, they never get rid of that dependency and needy, and it shows up in all kinds of addictions. But there needs to be this movement away from the world of the mother and this atonement with the father, the world of the father. And this isn't just the father itself, right? This is the father and all the men in the society, all the men in the tribe, as well as an introduction into the ancestors. God the Father. This is where we get the God the Father terminology from. God is as a pattern, right? And we need to be introduced to that pattern. The world of the mother, the world of the matrix, the world of the matter, material, matriarchy doesn't provide that. It's okay, we need both, but for a boy to be a man, he must go through there are a few things that are required for that passage from the world of the mother into the world of the father, which of course our society doesn't offer any longer. There has to be austerity, challenge, right? And then a sense of meaning before he can come back in. So there was always some form of pain that's associated with going through this rites of passage. My brother he was a Native American sun dancer. He was introduced to this rites of passage when he was in high school. He was 17 years old and he's fasting for 4 days in the hot sun. And they drew a circle on the top. They took him to the top of a cliff and drew a circle, and he had to sit on a rock in that circle. He had to do that for 4 days. He was not allowed to leave. They called it a vision quest. Then they brought him back, and he's still fasting, and he had to dance and pound the ground, and then they pierced his skin and broke his skin open because they tied him to a tree, and blood was given. It's all very symbolic stuff. This is painful, hard, challenging, austere stuff. but it's for a reason, because there's a number of reasons why, but men don't know so much by you telling them. We're doers. That's why school is failing boys, because we're not designed to sit down and just take to our ears. We're designed to get up and do with our hands, experience the things. This is how we gain wisdom. So this process, which has austerity, has challenge, difficulty, teaches at a deep level. It's not just head knowledge. Today we think we're so smart because we can cite so many different books, but this is deeply embedded based through experience that would happen for a young man. And then what that also does, and one of the things that's lacking in our society right now is trust of men. Men don't even trust other men. And and maybe it's hardwired into us, but our ancestors recognized that that trust can only be built through an experience. So when the boy is like, being eaten up by fire ants and usually the older men are like dressed up and they're scary to him, maybe knock out one of his teeth or cut him and create like some kind of a, tattoo or just pain. While he's going through all that and he's really suffering, when he can't handle it anymore, the men come and they also teach him that you can be nurtured by men, not just your mommy, because he's usually crying for his mommy at that point. Not just your mommy, but look, hey, they take off the mask and say, we love you. You're a part of us now. You've been through it. You've passed the test. You're now, and they heal his wounds and, tend to his pains, and then start teaching him, right? Because only until you are humbled, and this is for all of us, particularly for men, only until you're humbled can you come to the Father. You cannot come to the Father when you're arrogant. This is why we got to go through a lot of pain. Today I wear a Christian cross. It took me a lot of pain to come to Jesus. I couldn't go before because I was too arrogant. I was too full of my head. I couldn't approach the Father because I knew everything. And so this, our ancestors understood that about boys. So they get to the point where they've broken him down. He's totally humbled. And then and only then do they start embedding into him meaning, purpose, legacy, austerity, responsibility, because you're stronger than the women. We are more powerful than the women. We have more authority than the women, and you have more responsibility than the women. And you need to know how to carry that with integrity, the way the fathers have, the grandfathers have, and the ancestors have. And then he's allowed back into the tribe. And, one of the things that Robert Bly talks about in Iron John, in this, where he describes this process, the women play along too. So when the young man comes back to the tribe, the women pretend like they don't recognize him. Whoa, who is this man? Where's our son? We can't find him. And he usually gets a new name. And so it's literally a death and rebirth process that now allows that boy to truly be a resourceful man within that society. We've lost all that.
Beautifully said, well illustrated. And I know you're a great study of the philosophical aspects, the cultural components, and you teach that. So what's the answer to this solution? So, and I know that you're literally on the front lines of what I would say is the fight to regain masculinity, positive masculinity in the world. What's the answers for people, and how do you go about sharing that process for young men today?
Well, there's that secular nature in our individual life, right? Initiation doesn't just happen at age 12. It happens again at age 24. It happens again at age 36. It happens again at age 49. Every 12 years-ish, you start to you recognize that, something ain't right in my life. I'm missing something. And usually there's a death to self and a rebirth. When I met you, I was at about 36 years old. And I started, it was about the time I started flipping out. I wasn't sure of who I was anymore. And I had all the success, but something was missing. So this is what really, introduced me to this. Well, so there's this, all of life happens in spirals. We know this because look, their sun is up right now, but in 12 hours, the sun will be down. Look, it's summertime now, but in a couple of months, it'll be winter. Life just does this. And so it does it on a grand scale as well. And there are anthropologists who have recognized these, they say about an 80 to 100-year cycles that happen. And it's been described in a myriad of different ways. But one of the ways in our circle that it's typically described is that, hard times create strong men, right? But what happens to get to that, right, is a cycle. So you got hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men. We're literally at the top of that clock right now. We're weak men, there's no question about it. We're weak. We are mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. We are weak. We are soft. We are a bunch of big babies who've never been taught how to be men. And, and it shows up in a myriad of different ways. Why? Because things have been so good. There's no reason for us to be tough. There's no reason for us to be strong. There's no reason for us to be challenged. All that is silly. I don't even have to go and have the challenge of meeting women, because I can just flip open my screen and everything is handed to you. There's no reason. So we're literally, in my opinion, we're going to see over the course of the next, I think, 5 years, this initiation that's going to happen globally. But I think, America is right at where we go all. I really believe that America is going to be the example, because, we're suffering big time. But anyway, weak men are a result of the good times that we've experienced as Americans for the past 60 years or so. And hard times are look at what's going on in the world right now today with the rise of domestic terrorist groups, and the type that's the exorbitant amount of young men that commit suicide, drug addiction, porn addiction. I mean, it's bad. Families don't work. There are no fathers. There are no single mothers. Are the way these days they say that like something like 75% or more of divorces are initiated by women, and then and then something like 80% of men that are in prison come from single mother homes. I mean, like it's clear that the family has been destroyed. We're going to see some hard times as a result. So I'm kind of doing my part because I can see what's going on and I like this stuff. And so I talk about it on my videos, and I create programs to help men navigate what's going on, but it's going to be thrust upon us. It's not like something we need to do. It's going to do us. And when the wolf comes to the door, you're either going to perish, literally. I really believe that. A lot of us are not going to survive this. And what will be left are the strong men to now pick up the pieces and create good times once again.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: supercharge your protein shake. Everyone knows protein shakes are a great way to sneak in extra protein, build more muscle, even replace meals and burn more fat. The problem is the highest quality protein typically absorbs at around 40%. One way to fix this and dramatically increase how quickly and effective your protein shake digests is to add 2 to 3 capsules of masszymes into your shake. One research study showed that pre-digested protein during a meal increased muscle growth significantly. To take advantage of this, just blend the open capsules into your shake, and within 15 minutes or less, the enzymes will have begun to break down the protein into amino acids. This can make your shakes at least 2 to 3 times more potent. Some people do this and sip on their shake while lifting to provide their muscles with a steady stream of amino acids during their workout. To save 10% on masszymes, use the code SHAKE10, that's SHAKE10, at masszymes.com. That's SHAKE10 at masszymes.com.
I think you're 100%, and I feel very, very strongly about this. And one of the things that you learn through the real strength training, athletic performance and stuff, and having coaching and going through the pain of doing this, there becomes an opening, and generally philosophy starts to come in, and you start to see these historical patterns. And I know you're a great philosopher and you study an incredible amount. You're very well learned, and not just learned as a book, learned in application as well. In these tough times that they're coming out with, I used to have a shirt that said, "Tough times don't last, tough people do." And with those old bodybuilding shirts I got out of a magazine, I was so proud of that. I wear that every day, and I go to the gym and it had stains all on it, and I loved it, right? In this time, maybe there's a young man listen to this right now. He's exactly what you described. He's soft. He doesn't have confidence. He's watching porn all the time. He's doesn't know what to do with his life. Where does he start? How does he decide right now? Today's the day. I want to be a stronger version of myself. I need to, what's the steps that he needs to follow to get out of this? As I agree, the global pandemic is the loss of humanity, the loss of the family, the loss of strong males, the loss of strong females. That's a whole other topic. But tell me about this. What do they do? How do they get started?
Well, you got a little bit of time between the ages of 14 and 24, all right? 14, you're still living with your parents. You're still pretty much a boy. But an interesting thing starts to happen. Testosterone levels should be coming up. And that is called man juice. It's literally what makes us men. It separates the boys from the men. It separates men from women. We have an epidemic of low testosterone, low sperm count. Well, like I said, we're chemically castrated. One of the things that you can do and that you should do, and I encourage all young men to do, I did it, and it was a saving grace for me, and I became popular on YouTube as a result, is to start lifting. You gotta train that body. There's no such thing as a flabby warrior. If you're fat, lose weight. If you're weak, lift weights. You got to get stronger. You got to put the fact that you can produce testosterone, you got to put it to use, which means lift, biohack, right? Get to sleep on time, eat right. Take care of your body first. I would say that, above and beyond all the philosophy or trying to learn anything, a lot of our ancestors believed that you had to wait till the man was, past age of 30 before you start giving him too many spiritual ideas, because then they spend all their time in their freaking head. Right now, you're supposed to be red. You're supposed to be hot. You're supposed to be fiery. Get stronger. Get in the gym. You have to do it. So right when that testosterone hits, right around the age 14, you got to start lifting. There's no question in my mind. And I say lifting, I'm a strongman, power lifter. I like the barbell. But whatever it is, if it's gymnastics, body weight training, but it has to be anabolic. I'm not talking about, and nothing against running marathons and stuff, but I'm talking, that's more catabolic. I'm talking about stuff that builds you up. You lift, you train the muscular system. That way your body starts producing those anabolic hormones. So take age 14 to your mid or to your early 20s, right? Take those few years to do what you're supposed to do. You're still a beast of burden. You got to listen to your mom and dad, but lift. Don't get addicted to girls. Don't get addicted to porn. Lift. Right? Because that's when they want us having sex very early so that we lose ourselves in the vagina. And this is what happens to men, and they never recover from it. They're addicted to women. They're addicted to sex. They're addicted to approval from women. This is why we stay in that mommy mindset, because we go from wanting to please mommy to wanting to please girls. It's the same thing. So I'm not saying stay away from girls, but it'd be better off if you kept your distance. Build yourself up, build your body up, build your mind up. Then when you hit your early 20s, you got to move out of your parents' house. You got to literally move away from mommy. You're building yourself up to be able to do that from age 14 to 24. Once you get to age 24, make it your top priority to move out of your parents' house. I say, even if it means living in your car, you got that process. that our ancestors understood about ripping the boy out of his mommy's arms so that he can become a man doesn't happen for us anymore unless you go to the military or something like that, which I'm not against. Go to the military. It's a good idea. I told my nephew, and it was the greatest thing that he ever did. He had to get away from his mother. He was just loafing around as a 21-year-old. And I was like, dude, go into the Marines. Now he's freaking crushing it. He's using all kinds of powerful guns and weapons I'll never get my hands on. And not only that, because he was never a good student, but because he's a good kid, he's been promoted twice. Now he's like in charge of men. Here he is, 22 years old, in charge of like weapons that could blow up half a city and the men that will pull the trigger. It's incredible. But he's forced to he left his mom's house and he's forced to be around men, to be with men, to be led by men, and to lead men. Powerful, very important stuff. But if you choose not to do that, then thrust yourself into the struggle of life. Go live in your car, be homeless for a little while, get a job. You don't have to love your job. You don't have to be passionate about what everything that you do. I think that's kind of one of our Mickey Mouse Disney lies that we're taught, all of us. You need to love everything that you do and be passionate about everything you do. No, go wash dishes, go sweep the street, go pack boxes in a warehouse and make just enough money that you can buy your dinner, right? And you can put gas in your car. And that's your home. You know what I'm saying? Like, go struggle, go suffer, go and get on your own 2 feet and get away from your mother.
This is so pertinent, and I'm so glad that you're kind of illustrating this, because there's a lot of mumbo jumbo that's being sent out to people. People want rights, they want freedoms, but they don't want the responsibility it takes to get them. And they don't understand what you need. A little pain sometimes to motivate you. You need the sucky job. You need the terrible situation. You need that thing. You're like, man, I got to find a better way because this sucks. Yeah. And I went through that, my own journey when I was a young man, and started lifting exactly at that time, 15 years old. I was training in my barn, freezing my hand to the bar in the winter, training in a snowmobile suit. And then when I was first year university, I went tree planting in Northern Ontario. The bugs were so bad, I had to tape myself up, like to tape your neck and wear t-shirts on your head, and you'd sweep dead bugs and you'd be bitten all to pieces, and it was cold and it sucked. And I got hypothermia, and my car blew up, and it was terrible. My dad called me up. I talked to my dad one day, and he's like, we'd come out of the woods once every 10 days, and we'd just full of pitch. It took me 3 months to get the pitch off my arms. And I remember my car blew up. I had hypothermia. Everything went wrong. And my dad said, I'll come get you. I was in Northern Ontario where the rivers run into the Arctic. Wow. And I remember at that moment, I said, no, Dad, I got myself here. I'm going to figure a way out. And I made a deal, and I went into town, and I saw this old car, and I talked to the thing. I got another old car, and I had to navigate all this money, and I made no money by the time the whole 10 weeks was over. I think it was 10 weeks or 10 or 12 weeks. And I got myself back home, but I came home a man. I had figured out, it sucked. I didn't make money, but I got experience that I could solve difficult problems. And that led me to, start the next level of my struggle. It doesn't end. You just get a little bit of confidence.
Right.
It's like, okay, I can do this, or I can find through. Yeah. And a fire, like you got a lot of testosterone at that time. And talk to me though. I think there's another piece to this puzzle I think is really important. And that is the role of a mentorship. And because there's a lot of guys out there that they don't have a male to go by. They're not hearing these things online. They're not seeing this on the television. They're not getting this from their peer group or their education system. How important is it to you to have someone to be your guide, to help you in those those really, really what I think critical years?
Well, it's really important. It's indispensable. And whether or not it is something that you're blessed to have had, either through a good coach, or maybe an uncle, or a neighbor, or just a man in your life, literally in your life, a grandfather if you didn't have your father, literally like a man in your life. If you're lucky enough to have that, recognize that. If you have a father, recognize the blessing in having a father. Now, here's the thing. It's not about having a perfect father, having a perfect mentor, having a perfect grandfather, having a perfect male leader in your life. That's not the point at all. The point is that you recognize that you're blessed enough to have that, to have a man, to watch. Robert Bly says that when a young man is in the presence of an older man or his father, that it isn't just what the father teaches him, it's his mere presence that he calls it transfers a kind of soul food to the boy. That and I remember even to this day, like my dad's smell, the way my dad would smell, or the way my dad would talk to himself while he was working on something. My dad didn't like bring us into the garage and work on cars with us together because he was just doing his work and he would rather be left alone. But every once in a while I'd go in there and just kind of like look around and stuff, and he'd be like talking to himself like, "Arr, arr." So my dad's temperament and some of his teachings would just be, and I couldn't stand my father because he was so strong, and he was such an alpha male in a world that hates men. And I was raised in, the Betafied school system, mostly by women. So I learned how to resent my father. And it wasn't until I was much older that I realized, wow, what a blessing it was to have such a strong father in my life. So the reason why I say that is because forgive the men in your life and be grateful for the fact that they're there, regardless if your dad is a drinker, regardless if he left and, you hadn't seen him in 5 years, regardless of any of that. Atonement with the father is not about having a perfect relationship with your father. Atonement with the father is recognizing that that's the seed from which I come. That is the essence, the pattern. The word paternity comes from pattern. That's the pattern from which I am patterned after, whether I like him or not. I think that's an important thing for us to acknowledge. The men in our lives, particularly our fathers, one of the greatest things that I think I've been able to achieve in my programs where I mentor young men is I encourage them to go back to their fathers, even if they haven't seen them in 10 years. And so many of them come back to me and like, wow, that was the greatest experience in my life. I didn't know that about my dad. I didn't know what happened to my dad. I didn't know the struggles he had. I didn't know what really happened. All I had was my mother's stories about my father. Mm-hmm. And that is, you cannot atone with your father if you're living with your mother's mind. Your mother's opinion of your father should not be your opinion of your father. Right? There's so many young men that like, once that they heard that and that light bulb went off, they're like, that's right. All I can think of my father is in terms of what my mother told me. Go to your father, go to your literal father. But then in terms of the world that we live in and the access to masculine leadership, masculine teaching, masculine temperament, we do have YouTube. We have videos. We have, I wouldn't be able to say this if I didn't know myself as this. So many young men say, never had a father, Elliott, but I watched every single one of your videos and my life would not be the same. And I recognize not because I was trying to do that, but I recognize what has happened. And so I have been a digital mentor to all these boys. And it makes me think about, I think in Think and Grow Rich, I think it might be Napoleon Hill said, that it's good to have a mental mastermind of some sort. I think that's what he called it, but a mental mastermind. So,
yeah, that was the original mastermind. He used to have like Edison and he'd have Lincoln, and he created this mastermind in his head where these people would take on their own life and give him advice and information in exchange. And I always find that very interesting about the Napoleon Hill's version of masterminds and how that's turned into a different kind of experience nowadays with masterminds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, study great men in history and then ask yourself, what would he do? Of course, study the life of Christ. What would Jesus do? That's a big thing people like to ask. But also, Marcus Aurelius or whoever that you see, you said Abraham Lincoln or Thomas Edison or, great athletes. Just study great men in history, dead or alive. Ralph Waldo Emerson, we've got a beautiful picture of him right here, was like a mentor to me. The guy died in like 1870, but I've read so much of his work that like I quote him offhand. I think, a part of me, I can't help but think, what would Emerson say or what would Emerson do in these instances? So Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Bruce Lee, who are these powerful men that maybe are no longer with us, but left us a treasure trove of books and words and ideas so that we can literally have them be a part of our consciousness.
Beautifully said. So just to make that transition again, so they start in that physicality, they have atonement with the Father, and then what do you feel is, okay, we've got that. We've kind of cleared the decks on the past, and we've got ourselves to express ourselves in our masculinity, and the testosterone factories running. Now what? Now what do I do, Elliott? I'm ready. Where do we go next from here?
Well, to me, the mark of a man, the highest pinnacle of being a man is being a father. And so when I talk about, I talk a lot about being a king and things like that. Really what I'm talking about is that pinnacle of being a generative man. A father, a king, is a generative man. And what does that mean? That means that I no longer simply live for myself. I live for the next generation. I live for future generations. Rather than trying to enrich myself, I work to enrich and empower the children coming up, be it my children or the children in my neighborhood or the young men that I mentor to on YouTube. The whole idea is that you then go from, you go from being a page to a warrior, then to a king, and then to an elder. When you're a king, it's still a lot about me, my kingdom and my grandiosity. But then the final form is elder. And that's when you get to pay back. That's when you get to pay back the young men. I think in terms of that, I'm 40 years old, but I know it's going to take me another 40 years to be an elder. And so when you ask me what's next, I'm a fan of family. And I think it's important to ground it in that. God says to be fruitful and multiply. I've been married 18 years. I think marriage is a good idea. There are a lot of problems with it in our feminist world, our gynocentric world, that has destroyed the family by making it easy for divorce to happen, and like I said, something like 80% of divorces are initiated by women. I think that feminism has destroyed women, it has destroyed the family, and as a result, it has destroyed generations and generations of young men and young women. So I am hopefully a living example of what is possible in terms of family, marriage and family, living the promiscuous lifestyle, where you're hopping in and out of bed with, hundreds. Sometimes these guys, I talk to them, they've slept with hundreds of women. I'm like, this is pure mommy addiction. It's like addiction to anything. You're using somebody else's body to get an emotional or sensational rise. If you're addicted to crack, it's no different. And so they're just hopping from body to body to body to body. I'm a firm believer in how you would say monogamy, right? I think monogamy I know it'll make a comeback, because when men are strong and times are tough, and men are becoming strong. Times are tough, so women can't be as promiscuous as they are, right? The women, they will actually need men again. Now they think they're so cool without men with their middle management jobs, and and they're rotten eggs by the time they're 40 and they're trying to get in vitro fertilization. All that will go out the window when times are tough, and women will once again have to rely on men. And as a result, men will be imbued once more with the authority and the responsibility that is inherent in being a man. And so taking that responsibility, not taking it lightly, and leading your wife, and then make children, make babies. You know, I don't believe this myth. I say it's a myth. I don't believe in overpopulation. I don't think the planet is going to die because there's too many people here. I think that we need, actually in America, we need more. We need more babies. Now I'm going to get a little political and maybe strange to some people here.
Go for it. Go for it. I'm with it. I'm all about free expression. And I saw something the other day, 62% of Americans are fearful of expressing their political opinion. It's like, how can you have a conversation about the differences that was set up in this country if people can't say what they mean and not be condemned for it? So have at it. Go for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is a faction on the planet and in America that wants to see America destroyed. And one of the ways they're doing that is by lowering the fertility of the American citizens and opening up the borders for more third world people to come in. And what's happening is white people are being displaced. And, you know, I'm mixed. I'm half white and half black. And I acknowledge and appreciate white people for making America. I don't think if it was in the hands of the natives, we'd have gotten what we got right now. White people brought their technology, they brought their intelligence, they brought their military prowess, and they conquered this freaking land and built up a great place to live, a great society. But over the past 60, 70 years, a number of things have happened, including feminism and the destruction of the family, but it's this replacement of the white population. And you guys, you know, I say you guys, I know you're a white guy too, are being displaced by Muslims and Mexicans that are coming here and having 8, 10, 12 babies. Meanwhile, these highly educated white people, they're so smart that they don't make any babies. And very quickly, I mean, we're starting to see it right now. Not only are white people being physically displaced, but they've allowed themselves to be browbeaten and turned weak with all this guilt from so-called slavery, or, you know, people are wanting reparations and all kinds of what I think is bullshit. So you got white people not making babies and making themselves feel, look, and behave like weaklings, kissing people's feet and bowing down. I think it's a recipe for disaster.
You bring up a lot of really salient points there. And one of the things that I'd like to inquire for our listeners is what do you feel, how do you feel the interaction of marriage has served you as a man and served your wife as a woman? I'd like to hear your iteration on that, because I think what's interesting is you're not just talking about some ideas here. You're not just read a book. You've actually applied this in your life from start to finish. You've been with the same woman since you were a very, very young man. You're a father of 4 children. So what have you learned in that journey as a man, in both the challenges and the benefits, and of course the responsibilities that you've taken on as a husband and as a father?
Well, we're better together, you know, and that's very evident in all of nature. You know, you look at the yin yang, you could say night and day, male, female, positive, negative, we go together. If you have all positive charge, there is no electricity. You all have all negative charge. There's no power. There's no power in men by themselves. There's no power in women by themselves. And there definitely isn't any power in men and women being against each other. And that's what we got today. And women have grown hard and masculine. And the genders have been disoriented. We're living in a time of what I call diabolical disorientation, where up is down and down is up. Men are women and women are men. And I think this is by design. Satan has created this by design, and it's coming through our media. It's coming through our music. It's coming through our schools. It's being pounded into our head. I have 3 daughters, and It's painstaking for me to constantly remind them that you are better off being a wife and a mother like your mother is, rather than, waiting till you're 40 years old when your eggs are all rotten because you climbed some corporate ladder to realize that that's a man's game and it's not fulfilling to women. It's fulfilling for a woman to be a woman, and it's fulfilling for a man to be a man. And we have our roles. Positive has its role, negative has its role. We need to know our roles, remember our roles. We've totally lost them, and play our parts for things to happen. And when, and only when that happens, can a family work. Like I said, I've been married 18 years, and part of the reason why it works is because my wife is a woman. She has babies, she cooks, she cleans, she takes care of the family and the home, and she's the nurturer. Me, I am a worker, I am a provider, I am a protector, and the roles are not reversed. We're very clear who's responsible for what. But until that happens, I think family's not going to work. The fruits of that are to have, first of all, had I not met and married very early, I would 100% I'd have all kinds of baby mamas out there. My life would be a mess because I'd probably be paying all kinds of child support. I would have so many illegitimate children. I think one of the reasons, St. John Chrysostom says that one of the reasons why God gave us marriage is so that we can satisfy our appetites, but not lose ourselves in it as a result. You don't want to be mingling with so many different people. For me to have been with one woman all this time has allowed me to consolidate my power, consolidate my energy. It's like investing into the same bank account rather than, spreading it out all over the place. They say, well, I don't know if that's a good investment term, but it's like digging. If you're trying to dig for water, it's like digging in the same hole, rather than digging a little here, digging a little bit until you get to it. That one place where I invest everything. I give my all to my wife. There's no double thought. There's no double thinking. There's no back door. They say that it's hard to be 99%, but it's easy to be 100%. And when marriage, it's the same thing with marriage. Marriage is easy when both partners are 100%. So it's 100%. Has allowed me to build my business. I don't think I would have been nearly as successful as I am in business if I not had the pressure of having to put food on the table. I probably would have been far more degenerate. I would have spent far more times out drinking, out partying, wasting my 20s away rather than working my 20s away. So I think Jordan Peterson says that a man forces a woman or a woman forces a man to grow up. Forced me to grow up very quickly. A lot of people are astonished at the amount of success and wisdom that I had, even at a young age. You're like, wow, this guy knows so much. Well, because I put myself under the pressure to get things done when most of my friends were out there in New York City clubbing. I was working 7 days a week. So there's that. And I think we put too much emphasis on love, right? I think there's too much, and because I think what we call love is really lust, and it's what can this other person do for me, and it's the feelings that person gives me. And so there's that. There's the benefit of that, but that taken to the next level is knowing that there is someone that has your back 100%. We love each other. We love each other immensely. But it's the honor that we have for one another. It's the sense of responsibility we have towards one another. And to know that someone has your back in a world where most of us are lonely, most people, and not to say that everybody needs somebody. I always say either marriage or monk. I think those are the two most honorable ways to live as a man. It's like you're going to sacrifice yourself in marriage, or you sacrifice yourself as a monk. And that means celibacy. That means using all of your, another Napoleon Hill, transmutating all your sexual power, doing something great for time. But wasting it, spilling it out all over the place is a completely degenerate waste of time. So I don't remember where I was going with that, but these are some of the gifts.
This is just so in relationship and your relationship with your wife and what relationships like. And it's kind of interesting that it is your anniversary today. Thank you for coming here for that. And then I want to take the next step is the benefits in taking on the responsibility or the experiences and challenges of being a father to 4 children that you've been able to father and raise under this environment. What has that been like for you? And express that for people so they can hear what that is.
It's a sacrifice. To be a man is to be a sacrifice. And that's why when, I talked about the rites of passage and initiation, one of the very first thing that the boy learns is, holy, I got to sacrifice my comfort. I have to sacrifice my neediness. I have to sacrifice my selfishness. I have to sacrifice all the things that I hold so dear. And this is what the men teach the boy, that you don't matter so much anymore because you're a man. And as a man, responsibility comes before your pleasure. Pleasure is out the window. And so, like I said, marriage or monk, both of those require sacrifice. Anything in between is living for pleasure. And I don't believe, and I know for a fact that men are not called to live pleasurable lives. That's not how we hone our skills. That's not how we sharpen our swords. We don't sharpen our swords with pleasure. And that's why, so many men are so weak, because the pleasure, St. Thomas Aquinas calls it effeminacy. That's effeminacy that's associated with always seeking pleasure and always having an aversion to challenge. When you have children, it is purely sacrifice. I was thinking about, the other day I was having a conversation with my wife, and, I'm thinking about like all that I've worked and sacrificed for. Literally, I'm talking about work and money. By the time my 4 children leave my house, I'm sure I would have invested $1 million into each one of them. Literal money, not just effort, energy, and, mental. It's the amount of money. When it's all said and done, I'll have nothing. I'm not going to have a large nest egg at the end. Why? Because I sacrificed every dollar that I have into making a family, creating a great life for my children. And then the sacrifice, do not expect to have gratitude. Do not expect thanks. It's a thankless job. One of the things that, a lot of men will lament over is like, I give my life to you, or I do all this for you, and what do I get in return? Bro, you got to get it in your head right away that you're not doing this for thanks. You're not doing it so your children can admire you. You're doing it because that's your vocation. That's what you've been called to. That is a sacrifice that you're meant to make. And as a result, once you get that in your head, now you can be the type of father that allows himself to be hated. And this is a strange thing I had to learn. I learned it by watching my father and my experience with my father. But your job as a father, even if you make all those sacrifices and you try your best to create a great life for your children, is not for them to like you. In fact, the more you try to spend your time getting your children to like you, the worse off you and they are going to be. What does that mean? That means you have to constantly fight against the world and all of its demonic, degenerate, up ideas that are trying to destroy our children, destroy their gender, trying to destroy their mind, their sanctity, is pummeled on them through their friends, through the music, through the media, constantly. And you have to stand there as a rock, and you have to battle against that consistently. I have to consistently tell my daughters, no, that's wrong. I don't care if Cardi B does it. I don't care if your friends say it's okay. I don't care if it's all over the media, all over the music. It is wrong. And so there's a lot of, I don't want to say fights, but there's a lot of pushback, and I get some resentment, not from all of my kids, but from some of them at certain times as they grow up. And so that's another sacrifice. That's another part of being a strong father, is not needing them to even like you. One of my things my dad used to say when I was a kid, and now I get it, you have to grow up and you have to have the experience to understand it. My dad used to say, and he sounded like Scarface. I think he was a big Scarface fan. He'd say, I'm the bad guy. Around the house and he'd be like, I'm the bad guy. I'm just going to be the bad guy. I don't care if you hate me. This is the way it's going to be. And so, I find myself saying that a lot of times. I'm like, it's tough love, but a lot of times I got to be the bad guy. It took me a while to figure that out. My kids, when they were little, especially little girls, I wanted to give them everything. But as they started growing up, I realized, whoa, they're going to go the way of the world if I'm not a bad guy. And so, it teaches you how to have detachment. You have no choice but to be an alpha male if you're going to be a strong father. It taught me a whole lot about how to handle myself in business and how to handle myself in social media as a celebrity. Because I realized, okay, it's better to be hated. So speak up, say what's right, do what's right, even if they don't like you. I think Donald Trump is a great example of that. I'm a Donald Trump fan, and I think a big part of the reason why the world hates Donald Trump, I don't love everything he does or everything he says, but I admire him because he's an alpha male leader that's willing to do what he believes is right, regardless of if everyone hates him. That is the mark of a true alpha male leader. You can all go against me, but I know this is right, and I'm going to stick to my guns, and we're going to do it the right way. And so in a world that hates the father and especially hates strong masculine leadership, you're fighting an uphill battle, but it's well worth it, and it's deeply, sorely needed.
I think those are very powerful observations from a life lived by a very astute set of principles. So what's next for Elliott Hulse? What are you up to these days? Where's things going? What's kind of got you juiced up? I know that you have a very specific routine that you follow, like you kind of a ritualistic kind of person, and there's study and there's your walking in the mornings. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's coming in the future, and then I want to follow up what's your daily routine, and then where people can find out from you what's going on. So let's get into that space. That's a lot of questions, but I want to kind of set that all up.
Yeah. Well, I love the work that I do, and I do the work that I do because I'm called to do it, more so than anything. There's sometimes I don't want to do it. There's sometimes I don't love it, but I do it because I know that's what I'm called to do, and that's to speak to men, to mentor men, to lead men, to be an example for men, right? And what I sort of have an aversion to is the fact that it's all done digitally. And I kind of suffer in that way because I'm a physical man. I like to be around people, and I want people around me. In other words, I would have much rather be a man with a helmet and a gun and charging through the fire line with men by my side than standing behind this microphone and preaching all the time, and putting up pictures on Instagram that prove that I'm well worth following. The digital world is so fake. Social media is so fake. The internet's so fake. I'm grateful for it, right? Remember I told you I was able to sell PDFs and make real money. I was like, wow, this is crazy. It's not even a freaking book. It's bits on a screen. Poof, and I make money. So I'm grateful for the magic that it is, but I also something's missing as a result. And we're living in an avatar world, a fake world where everybody's made up. Very few of us are actually who we are in real life with the images and pictures and the pretension that we display online. And I've grown weary and tired of it. And as a result, I quit making YouTube videos on a consistent basis back in like 2017, 2016, 17. I was like, this is garbage. This is fake. And although I'm quote unquote doing some good work, I wanted something different. I wanted something more. And so these days, I don't want to say I continue to do it reluctantly. I do it because it's my job, and I continue to do it. But what I'm really looking forward to, and what I'm really excited about, and what I really see coming down the line is what I was talking about before in terms of these easy times with weak men are quickly turning to hard times where men will be forced to grow stronger. And I have seen, my wife says, a lot of people like complain about how things are getting out there with the pandemic and with the riots and, all that's going on in the world, the global conflict. There's so much. when the world seems like it's crumbling, when people would bring it up and, ask Colleen Elliott's opinion about it and why why I am the way I am, she would often say, it's been waiting for this moment his entire life. And I'm kind of excited for the conflict, for the hard times that are coming. I'm gearing up for it. I started to learn how to use firearms. I've become quite a prepper. I've learned how to grow things in my garden. The reason why I keep turning over here is because my dog, who's causing a mess out there, barking at the cat at the window. I got my protection dog, and I've always wanted to homeschool, and this is the first time because of the pandemic. My children are homeschooling. So it's almost like everything that people are resisting and fighting and upset about and the world is changing as a result of, I like it. I want it. I know I sound crazy when I say this, but I want it to collapse. I want collapse. I want hitting the fan. Right? I'm almost kind of like begging for it. Let the fan so that we can get rid of the 90% of the population that are just weak and useless. And like your t-shirt said, that's when the tough men, I'll get to do what I've always been meant to do, which is if I got to blast fuckers, I'll blast them. If I gotta starve and fast and I gotta be resourceful, I've got whatever it is. I want to struggle, right? Like that's how a boy becomes a man, and I'm a man becoming an elder, and I want to struggle. I want that last vestiges of struggle as this world crumbles and collapses. And that's why I made good with God, because he can take me out in any moment and I'm not afraid.
Powerful, beautifully said, and I think very pertinent for the times that we live in. Elliott, where can people reach out to you, find out about, more about you, get mentorship from you, find out about it? I know there's a lot of men out there that need your message and that need your guidance, and they're aching to be a strong man, and you're a great example for it. So where can people find you and connect with you?
Well, I would say the best place to follow me is on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. If you like what you see, stick around, and I'm going to make an offer. I'm going to offer you either my lifting programs, or most recently, I have a new mentorship program, and I ask you to message me the word King. Message me the word King and join my mentorship program if you like the things I'm talking about, because I take that very seriously. Like I said, it's my vocation, and it's my objective, it's my mission, it is my purpose here on earth to make men strong again. And I'm not doing it on YouTube no more. I'm not doing it for free anymore. You got to hire me. You got to pay me. You got to have skin in the game. This whole idea that everything should be free is a part of the freaking problem, right? You can get anything that you want. And people complain about me a lot about that. Like, why don't you just do what you do for free? Well, not only because I need to put food on the table for my children. I got expensive children. I told you, I'm going to spend $1 million on each one of them. Not only that, but you have nothing invested in it. So if you want more Elliott Hulse, pay me. Come to my programs, join my mentorship program, invest in yourself, and you see the difference.
Brilliantly said. And, I had the beautiful opportunity to speak at one of your events a number of years ago in Florida, and I was overwhelmed by the enthusiasm and the inspired group of men that you were leading to become stronger versions of themselves. Many of these men I have seen build families, build great careers, build athletic bodies, and most importantly, build confidence within themselves. And I believe in these times that for any man that's listening to this right now, or any woman that is connected to a man that you kind of know that he needs a man, Elliott Hulse is the man. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Awesome Health Show. We'll put in all the show notes for everybody where you can get access to Elliott and find out about his programs. And if you're really out there struggling in this crazy times that we live in and you don't know where to go, you need some guidance on how you can be a stronger version of yourself, Elliott Hulse is the man. thank you so much for joining us today with another episode of the Awesome Health Show at Bioptimizers. I'm Wei T. Lightheart. We'll see you at the apocalypse.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip. Turn cultured foods into superfoods. Raw fermented foods like sauerkraut and low sugar live yogurt can be good for you, but rarely have enough of the right probiotic strains for therapeutic benefit. So here's a way that you can turn them into superfoods. What I do is I get some raw sauerkraut or a healthy yogurt. Ideally, it's grass-fed or coconut-based, and you can empty 3 caps of P3OM into a container and mix it up thoroughly. Leave it at room temperature for a couple of hours before putting it back into the fridge. And what's going to happen is these probiotic levels will be multiplied. In fact, it doubles every 20 minutes. And then what you're going to get is you're going to have a food with strong proteolytic activity. To learn more about P3OM and why its patented strains make it the strongest probiotic available, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.